Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari. Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari. Jaya Gopijana Vallabha Girivardhari. Jaya Jaya Gopijana Vallabha Girivardhari. Yashodanandana Prajajana Ranjana. Yashodanandana Prajajana Ranjana. Yamuna Tira Vanachari. Yamuna Tira Vanachari. Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Jaya Radha Gokula Nanda, Radha Gokula Nanda, Radha Gokula Nanda, Shri Radhe. Jaya Sitaram Lakshman Hanuman, Jaya Sitaram Lakshman Hanuman. Jaya Gauranitai, Jaya Gauranitai, Jaya Gauranitai, Jaya Gauranitai. Jaya Prabhupada, 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 Srila Prabhupada. Shri Shri Radha Gokulananda ki jai, Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Hare Krishna, everyone. Welcome to this evening's Bhagavad Gita class. Hands up if it's your first time to the temple today. Okay, one person. And hands up if it's your first time to Bhagavad Gita evening class at the temple today. A few people. Okay, well, welcome. So we are going to be discussing a verse from chapter 1. And the verses are text 21 and 22. So we'll chant an invocation mantra, we'll read from the book, and then we will invite blessings from our teachers before we get into a discussion. So if you know the mantra, you can repeat after me. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Okay, so we're reading chapter 1, which is entitled Observing the Armies, and the texts 21 and 22. So you can repeat after me. Arjun vacha Senayor Ubhayor Madhye Ratham Stapayame Chuta Yavadetan Niriksheham योद्धुकामानवस्थितान् कैर्मया सह योद्धव्यम् कैर्मया सह योद्धव्यम् अस्मिन् रणसमुद्यमे Arjun Vacha Senayorubayormadhye Ratham Stapayame chuta Yavadetan niriksheham Yodhukamanavastitan Kairmaya saha yodhavyam Asmin rana samudyame Arjuna vacha Senayorubayormadhye Ratham stapayame chuta Yavadetan niriksheham Yodhukamanavastitan Kairmaya saha yodhavyam Asmin rana samudyame. Would anyone like to try to recite the Sanskrit? Arjuna vacha Senayorubayormadhye Ratham stapayame chuta Yavadetan niriksheham Yodhukamanavastitan Kairmaya saha yodhavyam Asmin rana samudyame. Thank you. Okay, so we'll read the word for word, and you can repeat after me. It's on the screen. Arjuna vacha. Arjun said, Senayo, of the armies. Ubhayo, both. Madhye, between. Ratham, the chariot. Stapaya, please keep. Me, my. Achuta, O infallible one. Yavat, as long as. Etan, all these. Nirikshe, may look upon. Aham, I. Yodhukaman, desiring to fight. Avastitan, arrayed on the battlefield. Ke, with whom? Maya, by me. Saha, together. Yodhavyam, have to fight. Asmin, in this. Rana, strife. Samudyame, in the attempt. Translation and purport by His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada, Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. Translation. Arjun said, O infallible one, please draw my chariot between the two armies so that I may see those present here who desire to fight and with whom I must contend in this great trial of arms. Purport. Although Lord Krishna is the Supreme Personality of Godhead, out of His causeless mercy, He was engaged in the service of His friend. He never fails in His affection for His devotees, and thus He is addressed herein as infallible. As charioteer, He had to carry out the orders of Arjun, and since he did not hesitate to do so, He is addressed as infallible. Although He had accepted the position of a charioteer for His devotee, His supreme position was not challenged. In all circumstances, He is the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Rishikesh, the Lord of the total senses. The relationship between the Lord and His servitor is very sweet and transcendental. The servitor is always ready to render service to the Lord, and similarly, the Lord is always seeking an opportunity to render some service to the devotee. He takes greater pleasure in his pure devotees assuming the advantageous position of ordering him than he does in being the giver of orders. Since he is master, everyone is under his orders, and no one is above him to order him. But when he finds that a pure devotee is ordering him, he obtains transcendental pleasure, although he is the infallible master in all circumstances. As a pure devotee of the Lord, Arjun had no desire to fight with his cousins, but he was forced to come onto the battlefield by the obstinacy of Duryodhan, who was never agreeable to any peaceful negotiation. Therefore, he was very anxious to see who the leading persons present on the battlefield were. Although there was no question of a peacemaking endeavor on the battlefield, he wanted to see them again and to see how much they were bent upon demanding an unwanted war. So we'll just chant Mangalacharans and prayers to invoke the blessings of the Lord and our teachers. So you can join along if you know the prayers. Om Gyantimirandhasya Gyananjana Shalakaya Chakshurun Militam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha Shri Chaitanya Manobhishtam Stapitam Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Kadamayam Dadati Svapadantikam Vandeham Shri Guru Shri Yuta Padakamalam Shri Gurun Vaishnavamscha Shri Rupam Sagrajatam Sahagana Raghunathan Vitam Tam Sajivam Sadvaitam Savadhutam Parijana Sahitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Padan Sahagana Lalita Shri Vishakhan Vitamscha He Krishna Karuna Sindhu Dina Bandhu Jagatpate Gopesha Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namostute Tapta Kanchana Gaurangi Radhe Vrindavaneshwari Rishabhanu Sute Devi Pranamami Hari Priye Vanchakalpa Tarubhyascha Kripa Sindhubhyaiva cha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Shri Vasadi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. Okay, Hare Krishna everyone. So, I have a question to ask all of you. What is the Bhagavad Gita? What do you know about the Bhagavad Gita? If you had to summarize it in a few words. Yeah? Okay, so one interpretation or one response is it's a Hindu book. Anyone else? What is the Bhagavad Gita? Who's come across the Bhagavad Gita? It's not completely new, right? Yeah? What do you know about the Bhagavad Gita? The written Word of God. Okay. Anyone else? Conversation between Krishna and Arjun. Yeah. So these are some of the common responses we get when we remember or think about or what we know about the Bhagavad Gita, right? Other things are that we've heard, it's a manual for how to live in this world because it teaches us a lot as well, right? And the literal translation, as you said, actually it's Song of God is the literal translation because Gita means song. I heard something really interesting recently where someone described the Bhagavad Gita as a love letter. I thought that's really interesting. I've not heard that before. So there's 700 verses in the Gita, and out of them, 575 are actually spoken by Lord Krishna. And over 200 of them is where Krishna is talking about how we, or Arjun in the instance of the conversation, can come back to him, or how can he become dear to Krishna? How can he attain peace, you know? So a lot of the texts in there are about that. And yes, it's a conversation between Arjun and Krishna, but ultimately Arjun represents us. And so we should think, when we're reading the Gita, that it's Krishna actually talking to us. So this verse here, as we read, Arjun is talking to Krishna, and he tells him to put the chariot in the middle of the battlefield between the two sides, the armies, the Kauravas and the Pandavas. And he's saying, you know, I want to see who's there on the other side. And this is the first instruction that Arjun gives to Krishna. And in one sense, it's a really strange request that's made, because he already knew who's on the other side in the Kaurav army, right? So when they're preparing for war, it's not like it's happening instantly. There was a whole build up to it. And, you know, in any kind of war, there's always strategies being made, right? And you need to know who's there and how you're going to defeat them. Just like if you play sports, you know, and there's a competition between two teams, they strategize, right? And they'll select each individual player and, you know, how are we going to defeat them, or how are we going to deal with them? Similarly in war, you know, they'll have war strategies. So in one sense, it's a bit of a strange request. But this verse actually is the first hint that Arjun is going to be indecisive in his decision to fight. And he gives many, many reasons. And one of them is, you know, unnecessarily it's just killing family members, you know, a fight between family members. And he didn't want it, you know, he didn't want the war. But it came to a point where Duryodhan, his cousin, and, you know, who was heading up the Kaurava side, his obstinacy meant that war was inevitable, because he just wasn't able to come to a resolution out of arrogance. So Arjun actually, I mean, before the Bhagavad Gita was spoken, he became so firm in his decision to fight that he took a vow that if anyone tries to stop him, he would kill them. That's how determined he was to fight this war before. But we'll see, you know, at this point, he's requesting to be taken to the middle, and you'll see as we read on in future classes, when he goes into the middle, his resolve, his determination actually weakens. Then he puts down his bow and arrow, and he's saying, I don't want to fight. His resolve becomes weakened. And he forgets about, you know, everything that happened before, all the injustices that they had to face by the Kauravas. So I'm sure a lot of you are familiar with the Mahabharata, right? Does anyone know about like the different injustices that the Pandavas had to face because of the Kauravas? Any examples you can think of? Sorry? 14 years of exile, is that what you were thinking? I think it's 13 years, but yeah. I think it was 12 plus 1, the 13th year, yeah. Where the final year they had to spend incognito, and if they were recognized, they had to start the whole thing again. Yeah. Anyone else? Examples of how the Pandavas had to really suffer at the hands of the Kauravas.
Yeah, they were like 13 years and they were in the Karnataka Hampi side.
They were in the Karnataka region during their exile? Nice, yeah. So, I mean, growing up, so their father Pandu died, and he was the king before, and their uncle, Pandu's brother Dhritarashtra, was blind. That's why he couldn't be king. But he was sort of taking care of the throne, I guess, and the kingdom as the children were growing up, the Pandavas, who would be the rightful heirs to the throne. But then when they grew up, ultimately it was their claim, you know, to rule, but they were never given the right to rule because Dhritarashtra and his sons, they wanted the kingdom and the opportunity to rule for themselves. Another injustice was the dice game. So Duryodhan tricked Yudhishthira into playing the dice game. And eventually they lost everything. And then there was, you know, it culminated in the injustice that Draupadi had to face with the disrobing of Draupadi and her humiliation there. When they were sent away, they were sent to a house where it was going to be burnt down, and it was made of material, I think lac, a house made of lac, which was kind of flammable, and there was a ploy to kill them by burning that house. So many examples where they faced injustices. Those were just a handful. And yeah, so even though they went through all of that, they tried to stop the war, you know. In the last attempt, Krishna himself went as a peacemaker to the Kauravas and said, you know, just give them 5 villages which they can rule, you know, because they're Kshatriyas, it's in their nature, they have to rule. So just give them something, you know. And Duryodhana was so arrogant, he said, I'm not even going to give them that piece of land with which a needle will prick. Like, won't even give this much land. So, you know, war was inevitable. So that's a bit of context to what's happening here more broadly. So in this verse, we're going to discuss 2 aspects today. So it sounds really simple, but one is Krishna and one is us. What can we learn? What can we take away from these 2 aspects? So what we're going to learn about Krishna today. So let's discuss what's written about Krishna in this verse. So Krishna has many names, right? You've heard of many names of Krishna. Anyone can share any that they know? Govardhan, Dhari. Yeah. Anyone else? Kanha, yeah. Kanaya, yeah. Keshava, Madhava, Madhusudan. So many names. Murli Manohar. Yes, so many names. And in this verse, Arjun actually addresses him in a particular way, and we'll come on to that. So every name of Krishna has a meaning, and it's very, very apt as well. Whenever we call Krishna by that particular name, then whatever meaning that the name has, it holds true, and it holds true all of the time, right? So what's an example? So Govind, right? So Govind is he who gives pleasure to the cows and the senses. And he's always doing that, right? But we all have names, and generally in Indian tradition and culture, names have meanings, right? But, sorry? Arjun there. But the meaning of our names, right? We don't always live by that meaning 100% all of the time, do we? Right? But with Krishna, that's not the case. He's always as he is described by his name. So one name that's presented in this verse is Achyuta. So chuta, without the A, means that which can fall down or that which fails. It can't maintain its position. So for example, like you have the Prime Minister. The Prime Minister is a position, and somebody will hold that position for a certain period of time, but never forever, right? But achyuta means the opposite. So that which is permanent, it can't fall down and it doesn't fail. And Krishna is always achyuta. So we can be achyuta for some time, but when something comes, when something overpowers us, we'll fall down or we'll fail in something. But that's not the case in Krishna's case. And it says in the Bhagavad, his supreme position isn't challenged. His spiritual position is never compromised in any condition. And it says in the purport we read, he never fails in his affection for his devotees. And thus he is addressed herein as infallible. Achyuta means infallible, right? So that means there's one guarantee, right? That Krishna has affection for his devotees, and that's guaranteed, that's always there. Now we may think that, oh, actually that's not true because I don't feel his affection all the time. But the thing is, externally, it may not look like it, but actually his affection for us is always there. And he's always showering his affection on us. In the previous verse, in the purport, Srila Prabhupada says, in such auspicious conditions, arranged by the Lord for his eternal devotee, lay the signs of assured victory. Right? So he's saying that the Lord Krishna arranged for his eternal devotee that he would be victorious, that Arjun would be victorious. Shri Shri Vara Gokulananda ki jai, Shri Shri Sitaram Lakshman Hanuman ki jai, Shri Shri Gaura Nitai ki jai. But we have to remember that who is he doing this for? His eternal devotee, right? So the more that we have faith in Krishna, the more that we are connected to him, the more we allow him into our lives, right? And are ready to put him into the center, then we will also experience that. We will see how he has arranged everything so nicely for us. And this may not be clear in the moment itself, but when we look back, you know, they say the power of hindsight, right? So when we look back sometimes and reflect, then we'll see actually everything was arranged really nicely for us. Krishna was there. He arranged everything perfectly. Just at that time, it didn't seem like it, you know, because we went through a very challenging situation and it may feel like at that time Krishna wasn't there, but he was there. For example, you know, a parent and a child, right? A child may be obstinate and stubborn that they want something, but the parent knows it's not good for them. Like they want to eat lots of sweets and chocolates, right? But there's a limit because you know that it's not going to be good for them. And so you have to put down boundaries because it's not good for them. But for them, they don't know that. And in the moment, they'll get angry, there'll be tantrums, I'm sure. But later on in life, when they're grown up and they realize that it was for their benefit, for their health, you know, they'll appreciate the boundaries that you set. So similarly, we also have a parent-child relationship like that with Krishna. We don't know always what's best for us. We're trying to navigate ourselves in this world. But he knows. He knows us very well. He knows what's right for us very well. He knows this world very well. So that's why he's given us wisdom and guidance like the Bhagavad Gita. So that's one thing we can learn from this verse about Krishna, that he never fails in his affection for his devotees, and we should always remember that. Linked to that is another name for Krishna and describes one of his qualities is Bhakta Vatsala. You've heard of that before? Actually, it said that that is his supreme most quality, Bhakta Vatsala. And he wants to show the world how great his devotee is. He's not very self-centered. Actually, he loves his devotees and he wants to glorify them. He wants to reciprocate with them. So I want to read an extract from the Mahabharata, which displays his Bhakta Vatsala nature and quality. So this is a pastime where, and you may have heard this pastime before, but before the war, Duryodhan and Arjun are both going to Krishna, and they're going to be, one of them is going to request an army, the other is going to request Krishna himself. So we'll read that. In Virat, which was a place that the Pandavas were when they were in exile, Arjun also thought of Krishna. After consulting Yudhishthir, he too decided to go personally to seek his friend's help. Leaving in a swift chariot, he soon arrived in Dwarka. As he reached Krishna's palace, he saw the palace guards receiving Duryodhan. The two princes, after greeting each other in a friendly way, went together to Krishna's chamber. They found him asleep on a large bed. One of his wives was fanning him gently. Duryodhan went straight to the head of the bed and sat down. But Arjun remained at Krishna's feet, standing with palms folded and gazing at his face, with tears of affection in his eyes. After a while, Krishna awoke. As he opened his eyes, he saw Arjun, who bowed to him in love. Then Krishna sat up and saw Duryodhan by his head. He immediately welcomed both visitors. After honoring them, he inquired why they had each come. Duryodhan replied, "It is well known that you are equally disposed toward both myself and Arjun. I have come here to seek your assistance in the war, which will soon be fought among us. Indeed, O killer of Madhu, I arrived before Arjun, and thus it is only right that you assist me rather than him. This is the practice of good men, and you, Krishna, are the best of men." Krishna looked smilingly at Duryodhan. "I accept that you arrived first, O king, but I saw first Arjun. Therefore, I think I will help both of you. Scripture ordains that one should help the youngest first. So I will first offer my assistance to Arjun. I have an army of 1 million soldiers known as the Narayanas, all equal to me in battle. Let one of you take them, and let the other take me alone. But I will not fight. Indeed, I plan to leave my weapons aside during the entire battle. O son of Kunti, what do you choose? Without hesitating, Arjun chose Krishna. Duryodhan could hardly conceal his joy. Arjun's sentimentality had overpowered his reason. He had forsaken Krishna's invincible army in favor of Krishna himself, who would not even fight. What a mistake! Smiling slightly, Duryodhan said, "It seems then that I am left with the army. With your permission, O Keshava, I shall now depart." So Arjun wasn't thinking from a material point of view, whereas Duryodhan was. He was thinking about manpower, resources, very like on a material basis. And he thought he'd won because he got the Narayan Sena, right, which was like the biggest Sena. And then after that, he actually went to Balaram and asked for help from him as well. But Balaram refused, saying that he'd be neutral in the war and that he wouldn't take part in the battle. So after Duryodhan left, Arjun and Krishna was still there. And Krishna asked Arjun why he chose him over his Sena. And Arjun said, because Krishna, when you're there, there will be all victory, opulence, and good fortune. He was fully convinced. Arjun had full conviction in Krishna. And Krishna said to him, but I'm not going to fight. So what would you like me to do in the battle? And Arjun said, please become my charioteer. And Krishna said, very happily, I'll become your charioteer. Even though there was no shortage of people who could actually play that role of the charioteer. But Krishna very happily and willingly was willing to do that. And as, charioteer, it says in the purport, he had to carry out the orders of Arjun, and he didn't hesitate to do so either. Sometimes we do things begrudgingly, but there was no hesitation on Krishna's part in fulfilling this role. And so he's addressed as infallible. And it said that in the battlefield, because it's so loud with all of the fighting, the charioteer and the warrior, they can't really hear each other, even though they're so close together on the chariot. And so, does anyone know how the communication happens?
I think Arjun has to kick Krishna, but his left shoulder was right shoulder, so which way to go.
Yeah, so the warrior, in this case Arjun, would have to kick Krishna either on the left side if he wants him to turn left, or on the right side if he wants him to turn right. So can you imagine kicking Krishna, and Krishna taking that, It's just incredible. But so much love, so much affection that Krishna has for his devotee and the devotee has for Krishna, that they're willing to do anything. And Krishna is willing to even accept this. So Krishna is Bhaktavatsala. I want to also read another pastime from the Mahabharata, which also displays Krishna's Bhaktavatsala quality. And this is around in the battle when Krishna... So I mentioned before that Krishna promises that he's not going to take part in the battle, but we'll see how his promise might get broken. So I'll read an excerpt from the Mahabharata. Seeing him killing the foremost band of warriors, and that Arjun was not fighting to his full power, Krishna became thoughtful. Bhishma could kill the combined armies of the gods and asuras if left unchecked. Unless Arjun did something, then even he would succumb to Bhishma's deadly shafts. Already he was sorely afflicted. Krishna reflected, I will personally slay Bhishma. I cannot tolerate the slaughter of the Pandavas. Arjun is not doing what he should do out of his respect for Bhishma. Therefore, I will lighten the Pandavas' load by killing that best of men in battle. Krishna threw down the reins and leapt from the chariot. Taking up a nearby chariot wheel, he raised it above his head as if it were his own favorite weapon, the Sudarshan Chakra. He ran toward Bhishma as a lion might run at an elephant. Bhishma's limbs trembled and his eyes flooded with tears. Here was the Lord of the universe breaking his own promise to protect his devotee. The Kuru hero threw down his weapons and stretched out his arms. As Krishna approached him, he called out, "Come, come, my lord, O supreme deity, lord of all the gods, I bow to you. Seeing you forsake your vow to save your friend and thus fulfilling my own desire, I am satisfied." So that was the pastime where Bhishma was like enraged and like just ready to kill Arjun, and the chariot got stuck, and then Krishna, to protect Arjun, was willing to break his own promise that he won't fight, and he picked up the chariot wheel and was about to charge at Bhishma, and Arjun begged him to stop and managed to convince him. So that's why Krishna is called Bhaktavatsala. It means one who's dear to his devotees and whose devotees are dear to him. So out of affection for his devotee, Krishna actually becomes controlled. He becomes bound by love. That's all Krishna needs, and Krishna wants love. Actually, he doesn't need anything. He just wants love. And he becomes obliged by the service of his pure devotee. That doesn't mean that our motive should be, we want to control Krishna. Our mood, our attitude should always be of servitude, to render some service. But in that pure love between Krishna and his devotee, it's simply a relationship based on serving each other to please the other. And love means to serve, right? And Krishna loves us. And inherently, we all love Krishna. We're just trying to revive that, awaken that. So that was a little bit about Krishna. So we learned about him being infallible, a chuta, and his Bhaktavatsala nature. So let's move on to talk about the second topic, which I said was us, right? So the battle is about to begin, right? And Arjun, what does he do? He almost kind of stops things as they are. He takes a moment to pause, right? This is a big battle about to ensue. In our lives, when we go through a crisis or a problem, what is our reaction? Maybe some of you can share. When you're going through a challenge, initially, what is your response like? You feel sad, frustrated. Do you act, or you're just in the emotions? Yeah? Yeah, can't really act all the time, but needing to go through the emotions, process them, yeah. Anyone else? So often our mind will actually, like you said, make us drown in sorrow, in anxiety and frustration, or even like constantly thinking like, how do I resolve this? What do I do? The mind just goes like on overdrive. But here we see Arjun tells Krishna just to go into the center of the battlefield and pause, because he wants to see who's there. And then this whole conversation ensues. This is just the beginning, right? We're on chapter 1. There's 18 chapters, 700 verses. And this conversation that took place, it said that it was around 45 minutes. So just before a big battle is about to ensue, Arjun takes out that time and tries to consult. So it's a very strong message here that, when we're going through challenges, maybe it's a good idea to pause physically, mentally, calm the mind, put it on pause, and turn to the knowledge of the Gita, turn to the knowledge of the scriptures. Yes, it's a conversation between Arjun and Krishna, the Bhagavad Gita, but our teachers have explained that actually it's for the benefit of all of us. It's timeless wisdom. Mahatma Gandhi, there's some famous quotes that you may have come across on Mahatma Gandhi in the Gita, but I'll share a few. So one of them, this is a famous one, is, "When doubts haunt me, when disappointments stare me in the face, and I see not one ray of hope, I turn to the Bhagavad Gita and find a verse to comfort me. And I begin to smile in the midst of overwhelming sorrow." And another one was, "What effect this reading of the Gita had on my friends, only they can say," he wrote, this is Gandhi, "but to me, the Gita became an infallible guide of conduct. it became my dictionary of daily reference. Just as I turned to the English dictionary for the meanings of English words that I did not understand, I turned to this dictionary of conduct for a ready solution of all my troubles and trials. So even powerful historic personalities have gained so much from this wisdom in the Gita. So there must be something in it, right? And it's a living book. It's not ordinary, because transcendental knowledge is living. You know, some of you may know Swami Bhagwan Keshav Maharaj, and he says, wisdom that breathes, you know, because it's living knowledge. So Krishna is with us always. We'll learn in the second chapter where he talks about how he's the super soul. He's with us all the time. He's guiding us. And this can come in different ways. You might think, I don't experience Krishna as super soul. I don't experience him with me all the time. But actually, Krishna manifests in our life in different ways, personally, but also through other people, right? So sometimes it's when someone says something to us, actually, and that might strike something really profound within us. It may inspire us. It might guide us in a particular way. And that may be Krishna guiding us, but it's through the medium of someone else. Or sometimes we may read something, like if we turn to the pages of the Gita, and it might strike us. So Krishna is there. So let's take advantage of this knowledge and watch the magic unfold and watch Krishna's guidance. See how Krishna's guidance comes through. If Arjun can take out some time to be enlightened and guided by transcendental knowledge, then what excuse do we have, right? This was a massive war, so much carnage, so much destruction. In our life, yes, we go through challenges which may seem like as big as the war, but 99.9% of the time, they're probably not as big as the war, the Battle of Kurukshetra that took place. So if Arjun can take some time out just before acting in this situation where he's confused and going through a challenge, then it behooves us to also take out some time. We're very, very busy in our day-to-day lives, so many pressures, so many problems. And the reason why Krishna spoke this amazing knowledge in the middle of the battlefield is to teach us this exact point. You know, that even though Arjun had to fight a war, yet he listened. He took out some time and he listened. And so Krishna, he's a genius. He's teaching us that in our daily lives, in our daily battles, you know, stress with family members, with work colleagues, with friends, all sorts of stresses that we have. But if we turn to the wisdom of the Gita, then it will help us. It will calm our mind. It will give us some peace. It will give us some tools to deal with our challenges. And by the end of the Gita, Arjun actually goes from being very confused in the beginning to being very, very clear at the end. And very calm and just clear on what he needs to do. He was feeling very weak physically in the beginning and mentally as well. And towards the end, he's very determined in his resolve. So that itself is proof that this 45-minute conversation, these 700 verses, they're powerful. And we should definitely study these because it will help us in any situation. So there's a lesson in here for us that, you know, we shouldn't rely on a moment's feeling to make a decision or change a decision, or how do we act from just based on what we see or what we hear or what we experience. But actually we should step back, consider the bigger picture, and seek some counsel like Arjun did. The other thing we can learn from this verse is about changing our consciousness. So in the purport, it talks about how the relationship between the Lord and his servitor is very sweet and transcendental. The servitor is always ready to render service to the Lord, and similarly, the Lord is always seeking an opportunity to render some service to the devotee. So Srila Prabhupada is actually teaching us here, what should our mood be? Actually, our endeavor should be that we are always ready to render service to the Lord. What does always ready mean? That means 24/7, always ready. And why? Why is it that we should always be ready to render service to Krishna? Why? I ask you that question, why? Why do we think Srila Prabhupada is saying this? Any ideas? Why would someone say something if they're our well-wisher? It's for our benefit, right? And they know that it's going to benefit us, right? So Prabhupada is telling us this because he's telling us, how can we be happy, right? Because it's our constitutional position. We are a servant of Krishna. We are a spirit soul, part and parcel of the Lord. And we'll learn that in the Bhagavad Gita. Now, the word servant can have negative connotations sometimes. I don't want to be someone's servant. Why do I want to be in an inferior position? But actually, if you reflect in your day-to-day lives, are you not a servant? You are a servant. You're always serving someone. When you go to work, you're serving your boss. When you're at home, you're serving your family members. If you've got a pet at home, you're serving your pet by feeding them, looking after them, right? So we're always engaged in service. Have you ever reflected on that? So it's not a new concept, this concept of being a servant. It's in our nature. You know, if a skilled writer is put into a lab to do some scientific experiments, how do you think they would feel? Probably a bit out of place. You know, if a fish is taken out of water, probably it's not going to survive very long. It's not going to be very happy, right? So we have to also understand that what is our identity? Scriptures say, Jivera Swarup Hoy Krishnera Nitya Das. It's just a fact that we are a servant of Krishna. And so if we engage in that relationship, if we serve him, knowing that it's actually our natural position, then when we're situated in that, we will be happy. So we are being told this for our own benefit, for our own happiness. And to always be ready means that Krishna comes first. He comes before me above everything else. In our journey to get there, we can reflect, how many times a day do I put Krishna above myself? What other things do I put first as priority? Generally, we ourselves are at the center of our own lives. We navigate our day-to-day lives around us, right? What's our enjoyment? What are our comforts? What do we want? If it's not about us, it's an extended version of us. So our family, friends, you know, what can we do for them? But that's also extended selfishness in one sense, because we're not putting Krishna first. So it's generally I, me, mine. But how can we actually shift this to put Krishna above everything else? And that doesn't mean we neglect our duties, because we've been given gifts in this world in the form of family, friends that we have to look after, have a relationship with, etc. That's not what is being said here. But it's all about shifting our consciousness. And if we put Krishna first, if we serve him, just as when you water the roots of a tree, the whole plant or the whole tree is nourished. You don't have to individually water the leaves, the flowers, the trunk, etc. Everything gets nourished. So similarly, in our lives, if we endeavor to put Krishna in the center, we will see actually that magically all of our relationships will also improve. We will have much deeper relationships. We will be more connected to our loved ones. We will serve them more selflessly as well, because at the center is our relationship with Krishna, our selfless, based on service relationship with Krishna. It won't be self-centered. So that will come automatically. So to conclude, we talked about two topics today, Krishna and us, and what we can learn and take away in this verse. We talked about how in times of difficulty we can pause and we can turn to this sacred knowledge and wisdom, such as the Bhagavad Gita. And the reason why it's powerful is because it comes from Krishna, who is our unfailing, dear, dear friend. And he dearly loves us. And we should try and shift our consciousness so that we are in line with our real identity as a servant of the Lord. And we can see how that will transform things in our lives. So thank you very much. And we have a few minutes before the Aarti. If anyone wants to share any comments or reflections on this discussion.
Thank you for the class. I have a question. You said that Krishna will never let us down because he's a chuta, infallible. But what about when he isn't there for us, when we don't feel his love, when we don't feel his presence? Is he still there for us then?
So,
How can we feel it when he's...
yeah, so the question is, we talked about how he's always there, but sometimes it feels like we can't experience Krishna being there. We can't experience his love. So is he actually always there? So in this verse, it says he never fails in his affection for his devotees, right? So he's always there, and his affection for us is always there. And as we sort of discussed earlier, Krishna's presence can manifest in different ways. Sometimes it's not so obvious, but the more that we connect to Krishna, the more he will personally intervene in our lives. He will intervene in some way or another, either indirectly or directly, but we can experience more of that direct connection the more we take steps towards having a direct relationship with the Lord. And then we'll be able to experience Krishna much more directly. But otherwise, we will also see that actually arrangements in our lives are always being made in a way for our benefit, and also in a way to bring us closer to Krishna, especially when, we've perhaps not endeavored to have a relationship with him, when we're not actually cultivating that connection. Then we will see sometimes that we go through more tough challenges because Krishna wants to remind us that we don't belong here. This world isn't actually our home. It says, Dukhalayma shashvatam, this world is temporary and full of miseries. This is not where we belong, Krishna tells us. And so challenges come to us to remind us of that as well, that we don't belong here. And turn to Krishna, and he will tell us how we can come back to him and be situated in our original position.